Imagine living with a love that asks for nothing in return, feeling compassion without being overwhelmed by pain, rejoicing sincerely in others' success, and maintaining calm even when everything around you crumbles. These are not romantic ideas or empty promises. They are the 4 sublime attitudes of Buddhism, a clear, simple, and powerful path to transform your life from within. What if the secret to true peace isn't in changing the world, but in changing the way we inhabit it? This isn't just another video. It's an invitation to awaken. If this message resonated with you, consider gently supporting this journey by liking the video and subscribing. It's a small action, but it helps us share peace, clarity, and compassion with others who may be seeking the same. Now let's dive in. Introduction to the Sublime Attitudes. We all want to live in peace, have healthy relationships, feel good about ourselves and others, but often, without realizing it, we live trapped in emotions that drain us. We struggle to be patient, we get angry easily, we feel lonely, frustrated, or even empty. And amidst all this, it seems no one taught us how to live well with what we feel. In Buddhism, there's a very ancient teaching that proposes a path to change this. It's not a set of rules or a magic formula. It's a simple but profound proposal known as the 4 sublime attitudes. 4 ways of being in the world that, if cultivated with intention, can completely transform the way we live and relate to others. These 4 attitudes are loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and inner calm. What's interesting is that they're not distant or difficult concepts to understand. They're emotions we've all felt at some point. What this teaching proposes is to grow them, nurture them, turn them into a way of life. The first is loving kindness. Not romantic love or love that depends on someone returning the same. It's a love born from the genuine desire for everyone to be well, from wanting the best for others, even if we don't know them, even if we don't like them. It's like the feeling you have when you see someone sleeping peacefully, or when you help someone without expecting anything in return. The second is compassion. It's not feeling pity. It's something cleaner, deeper. It's that impulse that appears when we see someone suffering and want to do something to alleviate that pain. It's telling another, "You're not alone, I'm with you." The third is empathetic joy. It's being able to sincerely rejoice in the good things that happen to others, without feeling jealous, without comparing ourselves, without thinking about what we lack. It's celebrating others' good as if it were our own. And when that becomes part of our way of being, we begin to live lighter, more connected. And the fourth is inner calm. It's that stability that doesn't depend on whether things go well or badly. It's the ability to stay firm without losing ourselves in fear, anger, or anxiety. It doesn't mean becoming cold. It means being present, conscious, without letting ourselves be carried away by what happens to us. These 4 attitudes aren't learned by memory. They're trained, practiced in daily life, cultivated in every gesture, every word, every decision. And best of all, we don't need to be experts or have a perfect life to start living with them. Each of these attitudes has enormous power, but when combined, they enhance each other. Loving kindness gives strength to compassion. Compassion opens the heart so we can rejoice for others. Joy prepares us to be more serene, and serenity allows us to love better. You don't need to be Buddhist to practice this. You don't need to believe in anything strange. You just need to want to live better. Because when we start to change the way we look, feel, and react, the world around us also changes. In the next chapters, we'll explore each of these attitudes in depth. We'll see how they work, how they feel, and how we can incorporate them into daily life. But before continuing, I invite you to ask yourself a simple question. What would happen if you lived an entire day with these 4 attitudes in your heart? Perhaps you can't change the entire world, but you can change your world, and that's already a lot. Loving kindness. Love is a word we use all the time. We say we love our family, our friends, our partners, our pets, but often that love comes loaded with conditions, expectations, needs. We want to be loved back. We want to be valued. We want responses that meet our expectations. And when that doesn't happen, we suffer, we get angry, we get disappointed, or we feel something is wrong with us. The loving kindness this Buddhist teaching speaks of is something different. It doesn't depend on what the other person does or says. It doesn't seek an exchange or expect a reward. It's a love offered as a blessing, born from the sincere desire for the other to be well, regardless of whether we know them or not, whether we like them or not, whether they're near or far. In the language of Buddhism, this love is called metta, but there's no need to learn new words to understand it. We all have the capacity to feel it within us. It's like that natural impulse to protect a small child or help someone in a hurry, even though we don't know who they are. It's that warmth we feel when we wish someone a good day without expecting them to thank us. What's important about this type of love is that it's not passive. It's not just a nice feeling. It's an active attitude, a daily decision. It's choosing to look at the other with kind eyes, to speak with kindness, to listen attentively, to act from a place of respect and care. The first step to cultivating loving kindness is to practice it with oneself. And this can be the most difficult part because sometimes we are our own worst critics. We judge ourselves harshly. We speak badly to ourselves. We demand more than we can give. But if we're not capable of wishing well-being for ourselves, it will be very difficult to do it for others. That's why a good daily practice is to silently repeat phrases like, "May I be well," "May I be at peace," "May I be happy." Not as a magical mantra, but as a reminder that we deserve our own care, that we can be our own allies. Then, little by little, we can extend that wish to others, to the people we love, to those we see every day, to those we don't know, even to those who have hurt us. And it's not about forcing anything. It's about opening the heart step by step and training it to include more and more people in our wish for well-being. Imagine for a moment what a world would be like where everyone practiced this type of love, where each person got up with the intention of doing good to others, of treating with respect, of looking with tenderness, of acting with kindness. It would be a much less violent world, less selfish, less full of fear. And although we cannot control what others do, we can choose how we want to live. We can choose to live from love, not from reaction. We can choose to look at the other as a human being who also struggles, who also suffers, who also seeks to be happy. A simple way to start is to greet with more presence. Listen without interrupting. Thank more often. Have small gestures that communicate, "I see you, I respect you, I wish you well." We can also practice loving kindness in difficult moments. When someone treats us badly, instead of responding with anger, we can try to ask ourselves what might be happening to this person to act like this. It's not about justifying the bad, but about not multiplying the damage, about cutting the chain of suffering with a different attitude. With time, this type of love becomes a second skin. It's no longer something that has to be forced. It just comes naturally. And when that happens, our relationships change, our mood improves, and we begin to feel that we're living more in tune with what truly matters. Loving kindness is not a distant goal. It's a daily practice. It's a path that is traveled with each gesture. And the more we walk it, the lighter we feel. Now I propose this. For one day, choose to look at each person with loving kindness. It doesn't matter if you like them or not, if you know them or not. Just wish them to be well, to have peace, to be happy. You'll see how something begins to change, first in you and then in everything around you. Compassion. We have all felt pain. We have all gone through moments of loss, sadness, fear, and at some point, we have all wished that someone would understand us, that someone would be there not to provide solutions, but simply to make us feel that we are not alone. That is the essence of compassion. Compassion is not pity. It's not looking at someone from above thinking they are worse off than us. Compassion is putting ourselves beside that person and telling them with our presence, "I understand you. I'm with you." It's a feeling that comes from the heart when we see the suffering of another and feel a deep desire to alleviate it. Sometimes we think that having compassion is a weakness, as if being sensitive was something bad. But in reality, compassion is one of the greatest strengths we can cultivate because it allows us to connect with others from the most human place. It allows us to act from care and not from judgment. It makes us more patient, more understanding, more just. Compassion doesn't just apply to great tragedies, it also shows in small things, in listening to someone without interrupting, in having patience when someone is in a bad mood, in not responding with anger when we're attacked, but with a pause that says, perhaps this person is suffering more than they show. And just as with loving kindness, compassion also begins with oneself, because often we are hard on ourselves. We punish ourselves for our mistakes. We blame ourselves for not being perfect. We demand ourselves to be strong all the time. But no one can be compassionate with others if they don't treat themselves with that same tenderness. Practicing compassion with oneself is being able to tell oneself, "I'm doing the best I can." It's allowing ourselves to fall without judging and get up with patience. It's understanding that we're not machines, we're human, and that implies making mistakes, having bad days, feeling vulnerable. Compassion also helps us not to respond to pain with more pain. In today's world, it's very easy to fall into indifference. Seeing so much injustice, so much violence, so much sadness can make us cold. But if we learn to look at that pain with compassion, we begin to find ways to help, even if it's with something small. You don't need to make grand gestures. Sometimes a kind word, a hand on the shoulder, or simply not judging someone is enough. Because what a suffering person needs most is not to be given a solution, but to be reminded that their pain matters, that they are not alone. And be careful. Having compassion doesn't mean allowing others to harm us. It's not about enduring mistreatment or justifying the unjustifiable. Compassion also has healthy limits. It means understanding the suffering of the other without stopping taking care of ourselves. When compassion becomes part of our way of living, the world begins to change. Because where before we saw enemies, now we see wounded people. Where before we responded with anger, now we do so with understanding. And that not only transforms our relationships, it also transforms our hearts. Today I invite you to do this. Exercise. Think of someone with whom you are in conflict or someone who you find hard to understand. Instead of judging them, try to imagine that they might be suffering. What might they be feeling? And from there, wish them something good. You don't have to tell them. Just do it silently, from within yourself. You'll see that this practice, repeated day by day, softens the gaze, opens spaces where before there was only distance. Compassion is not something learned by reading, it's something trained by living. And every time you choose to understand instead of condemn, you are building a slightly more human world. Empathetic joy. There is a very special moment that we have all experienced at some point, when someone we love achieves something important, and we feel happy as if that achievement were our own. It could be a child learning something new, a friend fulfilling a dream, a close person finding stability after much effort. It's a clean, sincere joy. It doesn't come from what we gain but from what happens to the other. That is empathetic joy, the ability to rejoice in the good of others without causing us envy or comparison. It's seeing the happiness of the other and feeling that it's also part of ours. And although it sounds simple, it's not always easy, because we live in a culture that pushes us to compete, that teaches us that if another succeeds, we lose. That constantly compares, measures, and classifies everything. Empathetic joy goes in the opposite direction. It invites us to stop looking at the other as a rival and start seeing them as a fellow traveler. It reminds us that happiness is not exhausted. It's not a limited prize. It's not that if someone is doing well, then there is less for us. On the contrary, the more happiness we share, the more it grows. When we feel jealousy or envy, it doesn't mean we're bad people. It means something inside us feels lacking, that we believe we're missing something. But if we train ourselves to rejoice for others, little by little we change that view and discover that joy has no owner, that it can multiply without losing anything. A simple way to begin cultivating empathetic joy is by paying attention to the small things, applauding the achievements of those around us without minimizing what they've accomplished, celebrating advances even if they seem small, recognizing the effort of others even if we haven't yet reached where we want to be. We can also observe our reactions when someone shares something good. What do we feel? Do we rejoice? Or do we compare ourselves? Do we think how lucky they were? Or why doesn't this happen to me? That honest observation is the first step to transform envy into admiration and comparison into inspiration. Empathetic joy doesn't mean denying what we feel. If we're going through a difficult time, it's normal that it's hard for us to rejoice for others. But that's where practice comes in. That's where we decide, am I going to let my wounds close my heart, or am I going to choose to open it anyway? We can also practice it with people with whom we don't have close ties, rejoicing in the success of a stranger, for a child happily playing in the street, for someone receiving good news. We don't need to know someone to wish them the best. Just seeing their joy and feeling it as part of our own is enough. And yes, this can be trained every day. It can become a way of being in the world. Because when we learn to celebrate the happiness of others, we also become more capable of recognizing our own. We live more grateful, more attentive, more connected. Imagine how different the world would be if every time someone wins, others sincerely rejoice. If instead of comparing, we get inspired. If instead of competing, we share. We would live with less resentment, less pressure, less hidden sadness. Today I invite you to do a simple practice. Choose a person who has achieved something lately. It doesn't matter if it's something big or small. Think about that achievement and wish with all your heart that they enjoy it, that they take advantage of it, that they continue to grow. And do it without reservations, without that yes, but that sometimes follows. You'll notice that by doing so, something inside you softens, something expands. Empathetic joy not only improves our relationships, it liberates us, makes us more human. And in a world where it's often hard to find reasons to smile, learning to rejoice for others is one of the most powerful ways to keep hope alive. Inner calm. There are moments when everything seems to be in its place, where we feel we can breathe calmly, that nothing threatens us, that life has a kind rhythm. But there are also moments when everything gets agitated, arguments, bad news, fears, losses, frustrations. In those moments, keeping calm seems impossible. Anxiety, anger, sadness win us over. We feel that emotions drag us, that we have no control over anything. And yet inner calm doesn't depend on what happens outside. It depends on how we position ourselves in front of what happens to us. It's not about staying still or resigning. It's not about acting strong or pretending everything is okay. It's an attitude, a way of sustaining oneself from within even when there's a storm outside. Buddhist teaching proposes this calm as one of the fundamental attitudes for living in peace. It's known as mental equilibrium, as serenity, as being at the center of one's own axis. And although we don't use those words, we can all recognize it. It's that state in which we don't react with impulse, but breathe before responding, in which we don't let ourselves be trapped by anger or rush, but observe and choose. A person with inner calm is not someone who doesn't feel. It's someone who feels, but doesn't let themselves be dominated by what they feel. It's someone who can be sad without falling apart, who can be angry without causing harm, who can experience an injustice without becoming blind with fury. It is, ultimately, someone who knows themselves, who takes care of themselves, and who has learned not to be a slave to their emotions. Cultivating that calm takes time. It doesn't appear overnight. It's like strengthening a muscle that at first is weak, but every time we choose to stop before acting, every time we choose not to feed a negative thought, we are training that muscle. We are learning to live with more clarity and less chaos. Simple way to start is through breathing. In moments of tension, close your eyes for a moment and breathe deeply. Feel how the air enters and leaves, how the body relaxes, even if just a little. It's not magic, it's practice, but it helps to take distance, to observe what we feel without being trapped. We can also cultivate calm by learning to accept. Accepting doesn't mean giving up. It means seeing reality as it is without fighting it. It's not the same to say, this shouldn't be happening, as to say, this is happening, and I choose how to respond. That difference, though it seems small, changes everything. Calm is also nourished by silence, by seeking moments of quietness, even if they're short, by turning off the noise, not just the outside noise, but the inside one. Because often the loudest noise is that of our own thoughts. What should be, what could happen, what we didn't do. Taking a moment a day to be in silence, to do nothing, to simply be, helps the mind to settle and the heart to relax. And something fundamental, we cannot have calm if we live running, if each day is a race against the clock, if there's never time to stop. That's why cultivating calm also implies choosing a more conscious way of living, prioritizing rest, saying no when necessary, taking care of the body, taking care of relationships. All that builds a base from which serenity can grow. Now, living with calm doesn't mean we don't feel intense things. Feeling is human, but when we live with calm, our emotions don't drag us. We can look at them with distance, understand where they come from, and choose what to do with them. We can experience anger without shouting. We can experience sadness without getting trapped. We can be in conflict without breaking ties. Calm is a refuge, that internal place to which we can return, regardless of what happens outside. It's not always easy to find it, but it's there. And the more we look for it, the easier it is to return. Today I invite you to do this small exercise. At some point in the day, when something upsets you, before reacting, stop, breathe, and ask yourself, what am I feeling now? What do I need? What response would do me good beyond the impulse? Just that moment of pause is a door to a more stable, more lucid, more compassionate way of life. Because living with calm doesn't mean having a perfect life. It means having a heart at peace even when life isn't. Integration of the 4 attitudes. So far, we've explored each of the sublime attitudes separately: loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and inner calm, each with its own value, its own color, its own strength. But the true power of these attitudes is revealed when we don't practice them one by one, but when we live them together, intertwined as a single way of being in the world. These 4 attitudes are not isolated compartments. They're like the 4 legs of a table. If one is missing, everything wobbles, and when we integrate them into our daily lives, we begin to experience a profound transformation, not only in how we relate to others, but also in how we relate to ourselves. Let's think, for example, of a common situation. Someone close hurts us with their words. If we respond only from loving kindness, we can wish them well-being, but perhaps we don't give ourselves space to feel what that provokes in us. If we only use compassion, we can understand that they're suffering. But perhaps we overlook our own pain. If we try to maintain calm and nothing else, we might swallow what we feel. And if we force empathetic joy, perhaps we pretend to be okay when we're not. But if we integrate all four, the story changes. From loving kindness, we wish that person to be well. From compassion, we understand they may be acting from their own pain. From empathetic joy, we remember that their well-being takes nothing from us. And from calm, we choose how to respond without being dragged by the emotion of the moment. That is integration. That is living with balance. These attitudes support each other mutually. Loving kindness opens our heart. Compassion softens it. Joy expands it, and calm sustains it. If we cultivate only one, we run the risk of staying unbalanced. For example, if we have a lot of love but little calm, we can become distressed when others suffer. If we have compassion but lack joy, we can feel overloaded. If we cultivate calm without love, we can become distant. And if we feel joy without compassion, we can lose empathy. That's why it's so important to train them together. In daily practice, they cross all the time, and there's no need to wait for big or special moments to exercise them. It's enough to be attentive in the everyday. For example, when someone tells you good news, you can practice empathetic joy. When someone asks for help, you can activate your compassion. When you're tired or frustrated, you can offer yourself loving kindness. And when something doesn't go as expected, you can breathe deeply and cultivate calm. Integrating these attitudes also makes us more consistent, because often we're very good with others, but very hard on ourselves, or vice versa. We treat ourselves well, but are impatient or demanding with those around us. Integration leads us to practice these qualities with everyone, without excluding anyone, not even ourselves. And the most beautiful thing of all is that when these attitudes are integrated, we begin to live with a different clarity. We become more understanding, more open, lighter. We begin to see people with another look, not as threats, not as rivals, not as obstacles. We see them as human beings equal to us, with lights and shadows, with joys and pains, with stories we don't know. We live in a world where often everything goes fast, where there's pressure, competition, distrust. Practicing these integrated attitudes is, in a way, a form of resistance, a way of saying, I choose another way of being. I choose to put the heart first. I choose to live with consciousness. The sublime attitudes in meditation. These attitudes are not only expressed in what we do, they're also cultivated in silence. Meditation is the space where these qualities are strengthened. It's not about emptying the mind or doing anything strange, just sitting, breathing, and looking inside with attention and care. Through meditation, loving kindness is trained by repeating simple phrases. May I be well, may you be well. At first it sounds artificial, but with time it becomes natural, like watering a plant that grows from within. Compassion is cultivated by imagining someone who suffers and wishing them relief. It's not about carrying their pain, it's about accompanying it from the heart. Empathetic joy appears when we think about the well-being of others and celebrate it without comparing ourselves, and inner calm arises when we sit in silence without trying to change anything, just observing what we feel. These practices don't require much time, just consistency. And the most beautiful thing is that what we sow in meditation appears later in real life, in how we respond, in how we look, in how we are with others. Because meditating is not escaping from the world, it's preparing to live it with more clarity, more heart, and more balance. And every time we sit to breathe with intention, we're sowing a real change in ourselves and in everything around us. Living with the sublime attitudes, we've reached the end of the journey, but this is not a closing. It's a new beginning. Because these four attitudes are not just ideas to reflect upon, they're concrete ways of living. Loving kindness, compassion, joy for the well-being of others, and inner calm. 4 ways of relating to ourselves and others in a more conscious, kinder, freer way. There's no need to do it perfectly. It's enough to have the intention and practice each day in small gestures. When speaking, when listening, when reacting, each decision you make from these attitudes will make your life and the lives of those around you transform. If this content has been useful to you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support what we do. And if you want to share what you felt or learned, leave your comment. We want to read you and continue growing together. Thank you for having come this far. Thank you for opening this space within you. See you in the next video.